to Coyote Valley and to the Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve. This is a pretty unique place. There aren't many places in the San Francisco Bay Area left that are valley floors. So we're standing on one of the last remnants, one of the last great landscapes in the San Francisco Bay Area, as the Nature Conservancy would say. But there are irreplaceable natural, cultural, and agricultural resources here on this valley floor. And because of those, fair to say that the Coyote Valley is the Open Space Authority's highest priority for conservation. My focus in my few minutes is going to be on wildlife. And I want to talk to you a little bit about a bold new conservation initiative that we've just released called the Coyote Valley Landscape Linkage. And this is a copy of it. It's in the packet that you all have. So when you're touring around on the bus today, or when you get home later, take a look at it. It's pretty exciting. The strategy really is to protect and restore the most important natural areas in Coyote Valley, and as you've just heard, enhance the resiliency of this region in the face of some pretty daunting challenges with climate change. So what's unique about this place? And it's not till you really dig in, it's not just driving through, but really dig in and understand what's happening here. This is a mosaic of geology and geography and habitat types, incredibly rare here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and packed tightly within 7,400 acres from roughly Tulare Hill down to the border with Morgan Hill. There are still here significant remnants of the historic ecology. Oak woodlands, valley oak savanna, wetlands, creeks and riparian forests, freshwater marshes. All those habitat types supporting a plethora of wildlife and plants, from mountain lion to bobcat to the infamous bay checker spot butterfly and California tiger salamanders. They're all here. You may not see them at this moment, but they're here. And I want you to just imagine for a second, thousands of years ago, you had all kinds of large mammals moving across this valley from the Santa Cruz Mountains behind us, across Highway 101 there to the Diablo Range. Most of those pathways are gone now, but there's one left. One critical biological linchpin, and that's the Coyote Valley. Now, why is that so important? Well, there are over 1 million acres of habitat in the Santa Cruz Mountains and the Diablo Range, 400,000 acres of which are in permanent protection. 1 million acres, 400,000 acres in permanent protection. With just a couple of thousand acres, the stepping stone for wildlife to get from one place to another, that is all that's left. So that's why, one of the reasons why this place is so important. It's the essential landscape linkage left for wildlife, and that's critically important for migration, movement, habitat, food, and as climate warms, and if this weekend was any indication, we need to keep moving, we need to find cooler places, and that's what wildlife is trying to do. So the other thing that's important to know about this, and this is a business metaphor, return on investment. Public and private funders have put up over $3.5 billion to protect those 400,000 acres in the Santa Cruz Mountains and the Diablo Range. And if we lose this critical pathway, these couple of thousand acres, we have hosed $3.5 billion of investment, and the Santa Cruz Mountains become an island, and we start to get extinctions of wildlife species. That's what's at stake here. You heard a little bit about water. Water sustains this whole life cycle through the Coyote Valley. Water is critical. Before Fisher Creek was altered to support agriculture at the turn of the century, Jake Smith of our staff likes to school me on this. The water flowed off the mountains behind us and fanned off across a big floodplain all right in front of us, before it was in an agricultural drainage channel with straight lines. Today, Fisher Creek and Coyote Creek merge and come together at the confluence there at Monterey Highway and the Metcalf Energy Facility. Really, really important. And the centerpiece of the Coyote Valley is a place called Laguna Seca. Well, I need to brush up on my Spanish, but Laguna Seca translated dry lake. I think that's a bit of a misnomer. For history, many years, we've seen how that is not a dry lake. And if you drove down here in the last winter, you saw that that indeed is the largest remaining freshwater marsh in the South Bay, Laguna Seca. It's a place where wildlife migrates. It's a place where 242 species of birds congregate, and on their long trip on the Pacific Flyway, stop and take needed rest. And Tulare Hill, which you pass as you're coming down the Santa Teresa Boulevard. Tulare Hill is in private conservation, but it's a valued serpentine outcrop, and that, along with Coyote Ridge behind us, is ground zero for bay checker spot butterfly in the serpentine soils. And Edmund Sullivan is here today from the Valley Habitat Agency, one of the highest priorities that we all got together to protect. So some of you have heard the term working landscape, and I like to describe the Coyote Valley as a working landscape. What does that mean? Well, by that I mean two things. There are men and women, farmers and ranchers working these lands, and they've been doing so for hundreds of years, providing us with the food we need and the services we need. And the other thing is these lands are working for us. So we did a study just 2 years ago in 2014 about ecosystem services across the Santa Clara Valley. The Coyote Valley is a place working for us to provide these free environmental services. Stormwater capture, groundwater recharge, carbon sequestration, food security, climate stability. We are getting all those and more when we preserve landscapes, and the larger the landscapes, the more the services we get. So I want you over lunch today when we get back, or in your flyer here, check out this landscape linkage vision that the Open Space Authority and its partners have put together, just released. It's circulating around all of you now. Please give us your comments. We're going to finalize it in the next month or so. But right over there on the easel is a big poster board of the bold vision and what I think is an achievable conservation strategy to preserve the most essential natural areas and achieve multiple environmental and community benefits, including wildlife connectivity. And the critical thing is that it builds on the work already done by our state and regional agencies who already identify habitat connectivity. 18 conservation scientists from around the state and the local Bay Area helped us put this together. I just want to share with you a couple of key findings of the linkage report. North Coyote Valley is essential to connectivity for all the reasons I stated, but one really critical point. The Santa Cruz Mountains and the Diablo Range almost kiss in northern Coyote Valley. They come together in their closest point. So for wildlife trying to move and navigate roads and highways and development, that's the place that they can go. Fisher Creek and Coyote Creek are now documented wildlife pathways, and thanks to Pathways for Wildlife, where we put cameras out, we see where the wildlife is moving, and there's some crazy, amazing pictures that you'll probably see today of collared bobcats and their points of movement just in the last couple months all over Coyote Valley. Roads present a huge risk to wildlife and to people in terms of wildlife-people conflicts. You know this, Highway 101, Monterey Highway, Santa Teresa Boulevard. We have increasing pictures, which are really hard to look at, of wildlife being increasingly hit. We can do better. We can work together to have safe engineered crossings for wildlife with development. High-speed rail, we're working really closely with them. We have to make sure that alignment that's going to come along Monterey Highway can accommodate wildlife movement. Why would we spend millions of dollars, $3.6 billion of investment, all to come up against a wall of an embankment of high-speed rail? We can do better. Dedicated bridges and underpasses. They're doing them in LA, for God's sake. If they can do them in LA, we can do them here. Every time I go to visit my family in the Thousand Oaks area, I'm looking for where the place is that they're going to put that through in the Agoura Hills. We can do it here. You're going to hear about agriculture today. There's not necessarily a conflict between agriculture and wildlife if we do it right. Wildlife-friendly agriculture, it's already happening here. If we restore and enhance Coyote Creek and Fisher Creek, we have thousands of additional linear feet of wetlands and habitat for endangered species. Our agencies like that, we like that. And we have a unique opportunity to restore the Laguna Seca to its glory from 100 years ago. And then finally, and this is one of the things that excites me the most, in addition to the great work that is trying to be done by the Water District and the city to address the terrible flooding from this last winter, we have built-in nature-based solutions to flood risk reduction right here. We're already investing in them. Let's make those happen to slow stormwater, reduce flooding, and we can do that in terms of our planning and design for what we all are hearing about, which is the new normal. We're not going back. Let's do our best. Let's learn from others before we have those same issues. So what do we need to do? We need to work with willing landowners who are willing to have us acquire lands or even portions of lands through good planning. We need to engineer those safe and effective wildlife crossings that I talked about with transportation agencies and municipal government. Working with the Water District, as I just talked about, for some of these natural flood risk reduction solutions and enhancements. And then we can do restoration planning, and we can look for the funding, which I know is out there, to get these restoration plans going. Proposition 1, Department of Water Resources, the State Coastal Conservancy, they're all interested in doing this work. So I'll end by saying this. By implementing the landscape linkage that you're going to be hearing about more today, we can not only preserve an irreplaceable connection in a pinch point between two mountain ranges and a $3.5 billion investment, and we can model one of the most innovative nature-based solutions in the United States right here in the San Jose and Silicon Valley area and be a model for how sustainability is done. So thank you so much for coming to our Open Space Preserve today. Look forward to engaging you all in conversation. Thanks.